now, live from the 13 Now Digital News Desk, this is the Friday Night Fever Afterburn.
Welcome to Friday Night Fever Afterburn. I am here, Sam Granville, joined by Kaylee Tingelstad. This is week one Afterburn, the first of the season. A side note, Friday Night Fever Afterburn, award-winning show last year, #1 digital show in the state of Florida. We are going to get into some scores, but before we get there, we have a very special guest. For the first time ever on Afterburn, we have a live interview. We are joined here by Mosley head football coach Tommy Joe Whitten down in Orlando. We did not get highlights to that game, but this one, a thriller. Coach, how are you feeling down in Orlando?
It's great. It's great. Whenever you win a really close ball game on the last play of the game versus a really good football team, everybody's emotions are really high. Everybody's your adrenaline right now is really high, and it was just a really fun game to be a part of.
So, Coach, for anybody who is not down in Orlando tonight, did not see any of the highlights on our show, can you just tell us a little bit about that game? We know that it came down to the wire. Can you just kind of tell us, start to finish, what was this game all about?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of started off with the weather. I mean, the game got delayed close to 2 hours. It rained here. We had a lightning delay, so the conditions were really sloppy. It rained off and on throughout the game. I felt like going into the game, we had a real big athletic advantage over them. They're a power run team, so the conditions definitely favored them. We had the lead at halftime. The lead should have been a little bit bigger. Definitely don't want to make any excuses, but the officials were definitely not on our side in the first half, called back a couple of big plays for us. Back and forth, though, in the second half, they took the lead late. And then we came back and took the lead by 1 with about 3.5 minutes left in the game. And then they drove down the field and had the ball on the 13-yard line with 12 seconds left. They had a timeout. They could have easily set up for the game-winning field goal, but due to the wet conditions, they had some kicking issues earlier in the game, so they opted to try to go for the win. And they ran a little tight end delay to their best player. It was wide open when he first caught it. I thought, oh crap! I thought he was about to walk in for a touchdown, but our safety Ty DeCosta had great effort on the play. Broke down from his safety position, came in. The tight end dove for the goal line, and Ty hit him right in the side and knocked the ball out and went to the end zone, and we recovered for the win.
Well, Coach, like I said, we have no video of this game. I hope that somebody took some video. I know that game was streamed, so we're going to have to go back and pull that later this week. Instant classic is what I was seeing on Twitter. Just last season, you guys started with a bunch of blowout victories against Bay County opponents, 42-0, 42-0, 42-0. Talk about, starting your season with a nail-biter like this. How important was you to just get this grinded-out win with your guys just hanging on to the last second?
Yeah, no, we talked about this going into the game. We could have, we wanted to be challenged. We wanted to play a team. They're a playoff team, a perennial power up in Pennsylvania. We could have gone out and played anybody and played a smaller opponent, but we wanted to play and be tested early in the year, find a lot about our football team, find a lot about what our off-season conditioning program was about. And a lot of the things that we've been talking about this off-season showed themselves, presented themselves tonight. It wasn't always perfect, but our energy and effort, guys played really hard. We've been really harping on. There's a difference in making plays when the score's 0-0 versus making plays in a tight ball game at the end. Again, that showed itself tonight. And another thing that we've been saying is, the game is never about one play, but sometimes the game is about one play. And it came down to the last play of the game, and we made a play when we had to. And just really proud of our guys. Competing, not getting down, not giving up, when some things didn't go our way early, when they took the lead late in the ball game, we battled back to the lead back. And again, it was just a really fun game. Hats off to Delaware Valley. Their coaching staff does an excellent job. They're well prepared, well coached, played really hard, physical group of guys. Hate it for them the way they lost the ball game, but just really happy for our guys. And hopefully this can springboard us to the rest of our regular season.
Well, Coach, once again, want to congratulate you. I understand you guys are going to spend the day in Universal tomorrow, so I want to let you get back to your guys, go celebrate, enjoy this victory, and we appreciate you coming on and joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, the Velocicoaster will be a lot more fun tomorrow after this win.
Love it. Safe travels back, Coach.
I appreciate it.
And that was Tommy Joe Whitten over at Mosley, a big win down in Orlando. Again, Kaylee Tinglestad, Sam Granville for the first time on Friday Night Fever Afterburn. We're going to get into some of these scores tonight. That first one up on the board, South Walton and Baker. Kaylee, you were there tonight. That was our game of the week. Talk a little bit about that ball game.
Yeah, I mean, before it, we both thought it was going to be more of a back and forth offensive game, and it was quite the opposite with the defense. I mean, especially with Baker. I mean, they were able to do nothing, especially with Caleb Wagner. I mean, he set that record last season, and this season they knew exactly who they were looking for. I mean, he was handed the ball almost every play, and the defense knew that. I mean, there was multiple players tackling him every play. So they definitely took advantage of that, and Coach Tisa talked about how his defense learned from that last year. They were a younger defense last year, and they learned, and so I think you can definitely see that there. They were without Pierce, which was a big hurt to them, but clearly they were able to manage, and they have another great receiver, Jaden, that, as you can see right there, a couple great catches, putting 2 touchdowns on the board while I was there. So he's definitely a key player this year for them.
And again, we mentioned that record, Caleb Wagner, last season against South Walton, racking up 535 rushing yards, breaking Derrick Henry's single-game record. That was not the case tonight. An amazing start for South Walton. We'll come back to this matchup in a little bit, but before we do that, I want to go ahead and look at the remainder of the scores. If anybody's joining us for the first time, we want to look at those scores. So again, we got Walton and Mariana. This game over in Mariana tonight. Walton going on the road and winning 28-7. I was out at Gavlak Stadium tonight. Arnold scores first 7-0, then 37 consecutive points scored for the Bay Tornadoes. That game, a blowout in favor of Bay. They bounced back from a loss up in Enterprise last week. Then we got Vernon and Liberty County. That one, of course, like we mentioned earlier, and we will get back to this, a very emotional one. We want to wish the families of Trey Pike, Vernon, Liberty County, all of them, our heartfelt emotions with passing of head coach Trey Pike just a few weeks back. Liberty County gets that one 21-0. Then if we're going to look at a few other scores, we got Bluntstown blowing out Freeport 54-20. Chipley, again, a shutout victory over Rutherford. They were the furthest team in the Panhandle to go last year all the way to the Final Four, 41-0. And then an even bigger shutout, Holmes County 51-0 over Graceville at home. Before we continue, I want to kind of notice some of the comments in here. We got a lot of joining us. We got John Brock. He was definitely someone that was here very much last year, big Bluntstown fan. Vernon, we got asked how did Vernon do, 21-0 Liberty County. Worst officiating, we got Mr. Brock need to break down some of these classifications. So yes, that is a big difference for this year. Last season we had a lot of 1A teams. That is still technically the case this year, but as we go through, we switch to a metro and suburban classification. So that is looking totally different this year. We will have a metro playoff, a suburban playoff. What that means is all the schools in the largest counties, that is Miami, Jacksonville, Tampa, Orlando, those are the metro counties. We have no schools in the metro classifications here. Mosley is the largest school in the suburban. They are suburban 4, then it goes suburban 3, suburban 2, suburban 1, and then rural 1. That is going to be our 1A schools, which are the majority of our teams from around here. Did Cottondale win? Did we ever get the final score on that one, Spencer?
For that one right now.
No final score quite yet on the Cottondale game, but that one was big in Sneed's favor. Is that right?
Yeah.
Big in Sneed's favor, so we're going to assume that Cottondale won that game. Kaylee, first of all, I want to say Kaylee's first time on Friday Night Fever tonight. She did a fantastic job. Kaylee, how does it feel just to kind of get out there and finally have that high school football action that we've been talking about for weeks?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, I've been to the officiating scrimmage and then last week with the kickoff classic, but having the real game, the competition, just the angst between the players, especially at the game I was to, Baker and South Walton. I mean, those players were ready. They were getting heated and everything was played fine, no fights or anything, but you could tell, I mean, the dedication, how important these games are. I mean, I love to see it. High school football is just something I haven't been watching since I was back in high school, so it's fun to get back in that atmosphere because it's a lot of fun.
And I see Ray down in the comments, the Rutherford one was expected. I will say after last week seeing Rutherford match up with Mosley, they definitely are in a bit of a rebuild. We talked about a Joaquin Waters, a young quarterback who last year I saw a lot of potential, but still not quite there yet. Chipley, they have the athletes. And one player that we are going to mention tonight is the DeQuavius Sorey. Quavo is the name that he goes by as a nickname. DeQuavius Sorey going up big tonight for the Chipley Tigers. Spencer, can we get some of the highlights up from that Chipley game? You're going to see him start off with his big hurdle. DeQuavius Sorey committing to Auburn University today, and you can see why he's going to Auburn. He had it narrowed down to Miami, Auburn, Alabama, and Florida. Going to the Auburn Tigers, so the Tiger stays a Tiger, and he's someone that we've caught up with earlier this year. Were you kind of surprised at all to see him go with Auburn, or how did you kind of feel about that choice?
I was thinking he was going to go to Florida. When I interviewed him during practice earlier, he was wearing Florida wristbands, and he told me about how his uncle plays or coaches at Florida. So I was really expecting the Florida turn, and then watching his commitment today when he pulls out that Auburn hat, I was pretty shocked by that.
Definitely, surprises some. I will say, 24/7 Sports, they were going through and saying this week, he's going to probably flip to Auburn. That it did end up being the case. Quavo, he's going to have a monster senior year. We saw that tonight. Look at him. I mean, he is just dancing around these athletes. I see Lance talking Rutherford used to be boss back in the day. Mosley is king now. Yes, I would have to agree with that. Rutherford, their glory days back in the 90s, one of the better teams in the state of Florida. They are definitely in a rebuild right now under Coach Tillman. But Chipley Tigers, they are not in a rebuild, clearly. They were in the Final Four last year, lost a lot of seniors, and it appears they very well could be one of those last 1A teams standing. We got Roger Pope in the comments. Can we check in on that Blountstown game once again? Josh Pope at the quarterback. He was one of the best in the area last year, throwing for nearly 70% completion percentage, multiple touchdowns. Coach Greg Jordan back in Blountstown. Freeport came out with a lot of firepower. We got Ashton Nunes, but that Blountstown defense was incredible tonight. They ended up winning this one big, and we got to say, they came into the week. This past week, Blountstown was named the #1 team in the SSAC rankings. To anyone who does not know the SSAC, the Sunshine State Athletic Conference, that is a specific conference in addition to the 1A rankings that teams are able to compete in at the end of the year. They play a sort of playoff where last season Blountstown was the North Florida League champions. This year they're the #1 ranked in the North Florida League, and you can kind of see that tonight with some of these athletes. 54-20 over Freeport. Those Tigers, they look like they're going to be right back where they were last year. We did. Spencer, do we have a couple more scores from tonight? I think we had the Weewahitchka and the Port St. Joe score, North Bay Haven as well. So North Bay Haven going on the road to Franklin County. They're a very young team. Franklin County also a young team. North Bay Haven goes in 35-7. Absolutely demolishes Franklin County on the road. A lot of turnovers in that one, and we did not get the name of the athlete that went down in that ball game, but a Franklin County athlete going down in that one had to have the ambulance come on the field and take him home. So we are going to give our prayers, thoughts going out to Franklin County football team tonight. We hope that was not a severe injury. We'll have to check in with Coach Strunk this week to check and make sure that all athletes are okay. And then Port St. Joe, they were on the road in Jefferson County. Again, another dominant 1A team last year, 39-8. They a blowout. And then Weewahitchka on the other end of that. Brookwood, a very strong team over in the Big Bend area. 53-6 was the final. So I believe that covers all of the scores we had tonight. I do want to talk about that Bay and Arnold matchup because that was one that I was at tonight. If we can kind of get those highlights up again. The Chucky doll, still not quite sure on this. I'll have to ask Coach about that one. Coming out, that was definitely scary. Arnold came out 7-0, and I was like, wow, this is an Arnold I have not seen before. They came out firing. Again, we did mention, you asked, where's Seth Hernandez? Where's Seth Hernandez? Did not see him on the field tonight. We'll have to ask Coach,
Yeah, because
about
he had
that.
a great game in the kickoff classic against Bozeman. I mean, was able to scramble, was able to throw the ball. I mean, he looked dominant like they predicted. And so that was surprising to not see him play tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And they started off 7-0. This was my favorite play of the night. Tyrone Boone snagging it out of the wide receiver's hands, the turnover chain. We're going to, again, that is one stolen from Miami, even though Miami did end up getting rid of their turnover chain. But Bay High, they lost last week in Enterprise. They were the only team in the area to play a regular season game last week because they played on the road in Alabama. Alabama was a week ahead. Tonight they bounced back. They lost big last week. They won big this week. 37 unanswered points for the Tornadoes. An absolute crushing as Bay improves to 1-1. Arnold falling to 0-1. Going to look back into the comments. We got Austin McNeil. Port St. Joe having 2 D1 players. I know exactly who you were talking about. DJ Oliver, who we've talked about over and over and over, and Lawan Zaccaro Jr., who I believe that is who you were talking about. He is committed to Navy. DJ Oliver committed to South Florida, the University of South Florida, the Bulls, that is. That team, again, we did not get video of them tonight. We will have to check in with them, next week and see how that matchup went. But DJ Oliver, we got, he was named, what was the list this week?
It was like the top 50 freakiest athletes, high school football players or something like that. And he was like 48.
And that might sound strange to you, freakiest athletes, but if you've seen this young man, DJ Oliver, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about a 245-pound running back that runs a 4.45 40-yard dash, plays on both sides of the ball, 100 tackles last year, 2,000 total yards, an absolute freak of a player. So I'm sure he had a big deal to do tonight. And we got a final score. Bozeman lost 46-14. Did we get that one confirmed, or was that the last time that we heard? We never did get a final score yet from Bozeman. We heard.
Yeah, we heard 46-14. Geneva.
46-14 was the last time we heard from Bozeman. Again, we are going to assume Geneva got that one. A great loss for Bozeman to start the week. Hopefully they will bounce back next week. We got Patterson from Snead should be on that list too. I would 100% agree. Again, no Snead's highlights tonight, an utter shame. We did see last week in the preseason when Snead's was taking on Mariana. Both running backs had over 200 rushing yards. Patterson, definitely one to look out for this year. Who are some of the athletes that you've seen so far that you're like, those are the guys we really need to watch out for this year?
I thought Seth Hernandez had a great game last week. I think one of the Bozeman receivers had a great game. Colton G. He had 2 touchdowns in the kickoff classic. I thought he did great. DJ Oliver, obviously, such a good player. Just slowly learning all the players, but there's there's at least a couple key players on each team that'll really help seal the deal.
And we did get Bozeman, Geneva. That one is final 46-21. 46, so Bozeman did score one more time. 46-21 is the final, is what we're hearing. Thank you, John Moore, in the comments. Obviously not the way you want to start the season for the Bozeman Bucks, but they will certainly be looking to bounce back next week. We've got through all the scores. Any game in particular that you want to go back and break down before we kind of start rolling things up?
I just think it's crazy how many shutouts there were. I mean, a lot of dominant wins with all these teams. I think Holmes County was a big one. I mean, they are a dominant team. They were last year, but seeing this new quarterback come in, I think that was exciting to see, especially putting 51 points up over Graceville.
Right, and, last season, again, you didn't get to see, the Colby Jones that Holmes County knows and loves, the All-American baseball player turned quarterback looking like Johnny Manziel. But when you see these highlights and you see number 2 running off with the ball, you kind of got to think, wow, this looks kind of like deja vu with Landon Lumpkin coming in and wearing the number 2 jersey and the dual threat quarterback, Holmes County. 51 points to start off. They had a very good year last year, making it to the playoffs. And Graceville, like we've mentioned, in our 21 teams and 21 days previews, definitely in a bit of a rebuild. A new coach over there. There was even, rumors that the high school might shut down this summer, so their enrollment was very low there. low numbers making do with the guys that they got. A lot of young players, not a single senior back when we talked to the team, not a single senior on the team for Graceville. So they've got a lot of kind of catching up to do at that end. But Holmes County 51-0. That was a huge, huge game. And again, Bozeman 46-21 the final. Way to fight Mosley. Again, we do not have the scores we do not have the highlights from the Mosley game. 24-23. If you missed it at the beginning of the show, Coach Tommy Joe Whitten at Mosley joining us, talking about that game, an exciting finish. We will have to get video of that, see how that played out. You can hear it in your mind, but it's only so much to imagine it. And week 1, it's in the books.
Yeah.
Some teams 1-0, some teams 0-1. We got a lot of football left to play. Which team stood out to you the most this week?
Which team? I think I'm just excited to see Mosley play. I saw a little bit of the highlights from their kickoff classic, talked to a couple of the players, heard about their game tonight, so I'm excited to see that team play. Like, hopefully I get to go to one of those games and see Mosley play in person and what I've heard from last year, their performance last year, that's a team that I want to see play for sure.
Right, Mosley starting off the season last year with multiple shutout, huge victories against Bay County opponents. This year they start with a team from Pennsylvania, obviously upping their strength of schedule, getting a big win down there. Week 1 in the books. Friday Night Fever, a lot of fun. Friday Night Fever Afterburn. Again, we mentioned at the beginning of the show, Friday Night Fever Afterburn named the #1 digital show in the state of Florida. That is a big shout out to our producer Spencer. He is one of the biggest reasons that this show is the success that it is, and also to you guys. This is the show where we get to comment, we get to talk to all of you. We can't get to do that during Friday Night Fever. We don't know what's going on in these games. We only know what we've seen in the first half, then we go into the second half, and we kind of just get the final scores from all that. You guys are here to tell us what happens. And the big part of this show is we want to connect. We want to connect with the high school football teams, the players, the fans, the parents. That is what we're here for. We are here for you. This is why we do this. We love sports. Kaylee and I love sports. We love football, but we do this for you. And Spencer, is there anything else that we were rolling through, or are we all good here? Kaylee? All highlights on mypanhandle.com. If you missed them, we will have those up within the next hour. We will have those up shortly. They will be there throughout the week. If you missed a game, if you missed a score, all those on our website, mypanhandle.com. Before we go, Kaylee, anything else from tonight that you wanted to shout out?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you everybody once again for joining us. Friday Night Fever Afterburn every single Friday night. After Friday Night Fever, we conclude at 10:30 on Fever, then we roll into this about 5-10 minutes after. We hope that you continue to join us for the rest of the year. But for tonight, we want to thank you for joining us, and we'll be back next week.